Hello my friends, Jeff, Tax Rescue CPA. You thinking this year, maybe I just skip filing my taxes. Well, maybe you can. But then again, maybe that's not such a good idea. We're going to jump into that today, and we're going to answer that question for all you folks that ever say, well, what if I don't? So what if you don't file your taxes? Well, I'm going to give you the usual answer, and this is the one, that's meant to scare people and get them to file and to toe the line and to submit to, the rules and all that stuff, because here's what's going to happen. This is what can happen. Basically, if the IRS thinks they can get money out of you, they're going to start sending you notices, and the notices are going to get more and more aggressive, and you're going to get to a point where they're going to threaten to and actually prepare a return for you or file a return for you. This is called a substitute for return, or an SFR. And once you start getting these notices, and this is kind of the secret in this section, is once you start getting these notices, pay attention. This is the time to say, okay, uncle, I'll file my return. Because if the IRS files an SFR for you, it's going to hurt. They're not going to give you any deductions or credits. They're going to file the worst possible filing status for you, and it'll result in the highest possible taxes, which then go along with interest and penalties, huge tax bill. So when you start getting those notices, pay attention, say, okay, fine, I give up, file a return. Also, what can be going on at the same time is the IRS could be looking at criminal charges for tax evasion. So you want to keep that in mind. Consult a tax advisor, consult a lawyer, but be aware that that can sneak up on you and bite you in the rear end quite quickly. Okay, so let's talk about the other side. And this is the side where, honestly, the IRS doesn't really care, or they already have received taxes from you and they think they've gotten pretty much all they're going to get. So this is the group that I kind of categorize as the IRS doesn't care. They're not going to really pursue you. So let's say you've got a W-2 job and you've got sufficient withholding going to the IRS, and you don't have any other income that looks juicy and attractive to the IRS, or your income's low enough, or it's a Social Security and it's not taxable, and the IRS says, there's nothing there for us. They may send you a few notices, but basically they're just going to be patient and wait to see if you file. But here's the rub. In the meantime, if you are eligible for any refunds, they're going to keep those refunds. And you only have 3 years to file a return and claim those refunds. But this is the group of people that you see go 15, 20 years without filing a tax return, and they never hear from the IRS because the IRS simply doesn't care that you haven't filed a return. They're not going to put forth the effort and honestly spend the money in trying to get taxes from you. And this is the secret to this whole thing, that you maybe don't need to file a tax return. Now, in complete disclosure, I think you should file a tax return, okay? This is the right thing to do. There are a lot of benefits from it, and it's what you should do every year if you are required to file. I mean, that's a separate video about filing requirement. You can see that one right here. Okay, so let me kind of go off on a little side right here, and that is that if you're in one of the 43 states that have a state income tax, the point at which they start to get uncomfortable with the fact that you haven't filed may be a different point than the IRS comes to that point. So what I'm saying is that the state may come after you for filing or for not filing tax returns before the feds do. There's a lot of information that gets shared between the IRS and the states, and the states are in no way, shape, or form kept in the dark. They know what's going on also. They may come after you completely separate from the feds, but then of course they'll notify the feds about it, and you'll have that one to face also. So keep that in mind, that if you're in a state that has an income tax, that may be a separate issue you're going to have to deal with. Well, what about beyond the requirement by the IRS, or the states for that matter? How is this going to affect me in other ways? And this is what I think is important to not minimize, is that in life, in our society, not having filed an income tax return can cause you problems. Okay, what are those, Jeff? Well, loans. If you try to get any significant loans, you're going to need to show a tax return. You're going to provide tax returns for mortgages. The other big one that comes up for folks is financial aid for college. If you or your child is going to be applying to college, there's going to be an application process for financial aid that will include tax filing. So this is where I see a lot of people who haven't filed for a couple of years, is their children get to that age and they need to file returns for that financial aid application. There's also government benefits you need to keep in mind, especially Social Security and Medicare, that the eligibility will be dependent on tax return filings and will play into that. It can also affect your credit score. The other thing that comes up is actually applying for jobs. There are some jobs that run background checks and will be looking at your tax filings. Also, trying to rent a house could cause problems there because the landlord wants to see a tax return to prove income so you can rent the house. But overall, the biggest one I see is it's the stress and the anxiety. And this is what I really see in my clients that come to me and we file multiple years of old tax returns and we get the thing settled, is they talk about not the financial impact, but the mental and psychological impact and the weight that's lifted from their shoulders from having these returns now filed and taken care of. And that can be a really big issue that goes beyond the dollars and the cents. What do I do, Jeff, if I haven't filed in a while? Well, the first thing you want to do is pull your transcripts. And I've got a video here that talks just about how to pull them and how easy and quick it is going online to the IRS website and getting your transcripts. And what these tell you is, they tell you what the IRS knows about your financial life, and they also gives you an idea of what the IRS has been doing, whether they really cared or not, and what kind of strategy you may want to use when you get your returns filed and get current again. So that's the main thing, is to look at those transcripts and see what's going on so you know what you're up against. And if you have any questions at that point and you want some advice, by all means, reach out to me and I'll help you go through it. In fact, here is an invitation for a personalized free tax review. Get the information you need. I hope this video has given you some good information and you've learned a couple of the secrets about what happens if you don't file your taxes. Thanks for watching. Now go think about filing your taxes. Who's doing your taxes?